Good morning. Hey, how's it going? Today we're going to talk about Miss Wendy Williams, her guardianship. And you probably didn't get a title or anything because I just want to jump into it. I'll optimize after the fact. If you were living under a rock, I'll fill you in. Yesterday, Wendy Williams made an appearance on both Don Lemon and the Breakfast Club's shows. And we haven't heard Wendy in this way for a very long time. So it was amazing as a fan of Wendy Williams, super fan of Wendy Williams. It was soothing to my soul to hear from her and to hear in her own words, which were very clear and concise for the most part, about what she was going through. And it was also like very anger causing and saddening to hear the frustration that she is currently under. And so there's a lot that we learned about if you haven't listened to that those interviews. But ultimately, her and her niece were on both shows to explain how they feel like Wendy is being that she's in an abusive situation, that she is being that under this conservatorship, basically, her rights are have been pretty much taken away, that she is not cognitively or impaired to the point where she needs to have this kind of care, that she's cut off from her family members, she has no access to money. The things that she does want, she's not, no one's giving them to her. So she feels like a prisoner, she says. Those are her words, that she was in a luxury prison. She has some kind of phone where people can call her, but she can't call them. And Wells Fargo is responsible for setting up the conservatorship. Now, Wells Fargo said that there were well documented events, right? Things that happened that caused concern. And they do infer that her son was involved, which he's young, so I kind of get that. But I don't know to what extent that they felt like they needed to protect her from that situation. And they also noted there was some substance abuse. And I think that, if you follow Wendy Williams, you know this. You know that she's dealt with alcohol and drug usage. But there's a lot of things that's mixed into it. It's like we thought it was one thing, now it's this other thing. Now you're telling me she has dementia. It's like, what is it? And to top it all off, the documentary that was shown that did present a person who seemed to be under serious duress and cognitive impairment, right? Not a doctor, not at all. Though I do have some personal experience that I do want to impart later on. So, with that being said, I did want to bring y'all up to speed on what her attorney says. Now, when I say her attorney, I'm gonna give you these because while this person represents Wendy in a capacity, this is not Wendy Williams' choice of attorney. This person has been put in place by Sabrina Morrissey. Sabrina Morrissey is her conservator, the person that oversees her life at this point. And from what it sounded like to me, based off of the interviews that she did yesterday, this person was upset and she was retaliatory towards Wendy. So they are fearing that because she conducted these interviews, that it might be an even more oppressive situation. A birthday for her father's coming up. She's already complained about basic things that she wants. And if it comes down to it, she's got the money to get those things. So one tends to think like, well, if she doesn't play nice, then maybe she's not going to get the water she wants or the brush she wants or whatever. Long story short, she's in this facility. They have like maximum security, it sounds like. She doesn't confer with the other people because the other people are on a different journey. A lot of those people are older, and from what she's stating, they are not they're really impaired. Short, tiny little story. My daughter was in a a man hit my daughter. Okay, I keep saying car accident. He hit her while she was crossing the street. She suffered damage on multiple places of her brain, and her frontal lobe was affected. Different different parts of her brain. So in 4 areas, she had fractures in her brain. So I got to see firsthand what damage to the brain, and even this part of your brain is where you make decisions. It also affects like crazy stuff like decision making, your behavior, which is interesting now I think about it, because people who suffer damage to their frontal lobe often will act erratically because they have no real mechanism to manage it just yet because the brain has to heal and rewire. One thing I haven't got from Wendy Williams is aggression. She seems even more passive and agreeable in this state. And in a weird way, even though the situation she's in is dire, I felt like the energy of gratitude, if that makes any sense. Like she's like, I don't ask for much, I don't want much. It didn't feel like the grandiose, like brash, like I'm Wendy Williams energy. And I think it's like more of a I'm grateful to be here. I just want to be able to live out my last days the way I want to. And I feel like that we all will have a point in life where we will have to make that decision, right? Like, or not decision, but we'll be put in a situation where it's like your scope on what life was like this will kind of get down to like, okay, I just got to survive this thing. And the hope is that I'm at least surrounded by family or in an environment that's comfortable to me, that makes me feel safe. To hear her constantly say, I eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner in my bed. I don't talk to these people because though they're lovely people, they're not really my type of people, and some of them are really sick. She said it in a hella nice way. She didn't say anything like they're dumb, they're they're too old for me to talk to them, like they're imbeciles. Like she was not like the Wendy I would think that she was, and she was not putting on airs. I really like she. We listened to her talk for at least almost an hour between Don Lemon and the Breakfast Club show. So that's my take on that. But I feel like even people who cannot speak for themselves, like I've seen my relatives at, at what we used to call old folks homes. I know that's not appropriate nowadays. What senior citizen homes, these residential places? I gotta work on the terminology. I remember seeing my uncle, the look in his eyes when he was not able to speak anymore. And mind you, my uncle was blind, so he had multiple strokes. I remember grabbing his hand and how he grabbed back. You know what I mean? Like the strength of that. Like he was communicating that he was happy that we were there, right? And we know that when we have so much data on separating older people from their loved ones, or when their loved ones pass, or when they're removed from their surroundings, how their quality of life and their quality of health degrades at the same level. We have tons of data on this. So I don't understand why they are purposely segregating her from her family. With that being said, this statement was put out from Sabrina Morrissey's, I'm going to call it Sabrina Morrissey because it's not Wendy Williams' attorney. This is the attorney that is supposedly representing Wendy Williams' side in a case where they believe that the production company that produced that documentary that we saw, that they were being predatory. So they're like, we're going to sue you guys, studio, on behalf of Wendy. What's interesting is we haven't heard Wendy Williams' version of that. We didn't hear how she felt about it, though she saw it. So it's in the best interest of the attorney to say, she had a good couple days. She did. She was, sometimes she's good old Wendy, but sometimes it's not. Because they need to win their case. They also need to justify why they're in the situation they're in. So let's listen to TMZ and see what they said yesterday.
Remember in movies, that sometimes people are in the back seat of a car and it's cold out and they write help in the back window because they're trying to send signals. Wendy Williams did that today.
Yeah, wow, that is a heck of a metaphor and an accurate one because we've heard so much over the last few years about Wendy's, her condition, about her health, and that she is,
They said permanently disabled.
That was the word.
And we thought she was not functional and needed the kind of care that only a conservatorship or, in New York, a guardianship could provide.
Which she still is under. But today, she's speaking out. And I gotta say, you're about to hear her. She sounds pretty lucid, but she is speaking out about where she is, why she's there, and some things that are really upsetting to her. So this was Wendy speaking to Charlemagne on The Breakfast Club this morning.
I am not cognitively impaired, you know what I'm saying? No, but I feel like I am in prison. You understand what I'm saying? I'm in this place where the people are in their 90s and their 80s. Like, I'm exhausted thinking about, what if I can't see my dad for his birthday? You know, at 94, you know, the day after that is not promised. It's not promised. Like, I want to give my dad some sort of fragrance. You know, I want to go to Sephora and pick and choose. What? Right now, my life is like up.
Yeah.
And
She's prepared for the fact that her phone might be taken away.
what if they take my phone? I won't be able to talk to anybody.
Well, here's the thing about her
That phone.
She does not have a cell phone. And it's a landline, and she can call out, but nobody can call her. Why are they doing that to her? Why would you block her from the outside world unless you don't want people on the outside to know what she's saying? That should alarm everybody.
Yeah,
That should alarm everybody.
So in addition to this, guys, her niece, Alex, was also joined in on the call and explained that just the living conditions that Wendy's experiencing are absolutely terrible. They say that she's cooped up in this small room in New York City where she only has basic necessities, and one of the biggest concerns is just a small window that doesn't give her enough sunlight. And keep in mind, she has breakfast, lunch, and dinner in her bed. She can't go outside. In fact, she says that she has to use a key to go down the elevator, and it's, I guess, difficult for her to leave the building on her own accord. My biggest question is, why is she deciding to speak out now? She claims that this has been going on, this type of mistreatment, for 3 years. She's granted she's good friends with Charlemagne.
Yeah, well, I think, Jacob, I think that's the answer. A week ago, she called Charlemagne, and once he had that conversation with her, he said she seemed well enough that she could do a radio show the next day. And I think then they made some decision that, yeah, she'll do exactly that, and she did.
And it does sound like some members of her family, certainly her niece said this. They said they want people to be on social media posting #FreeWendy, much the way we heard the Free Britney movement.
And I'm going to...
and they're wondering, I think it seems like her family is wondering, why isn't there this cry for Wendy to be free the way there was?
They don't know yet, and that's one of the reasons she's coming forward. And I got to say, personally, the Free Britney movement missed one huge point, which is she has a real mental illness that was diagnosed and almost died before that conservatorship was established. The conservatorship saved her life, and there were reasons for it. Here, I think this is much sketchier.
So to her family's point, if you were on board for Free Britney, you should definitely be on board for Free Wendy.
Times two.
Yeah.
And look, when you watch that documentary on her and she was out of her head, what I'm told by sources who are directly connected to this, that a lot of this had to do with alcohol. And Wendy had an alcohol problem. Right now, what I'm told is she is free of alcohol, and she's free of alcohol because they're not giving her any, obviously. And she's on mood stabilizers, but that aside, you know, the alcohol may have made her appear the way she was, but you don't take an alcoholic and put him under a guardianship.
Right.
You just don't do that. Send them to rehab and then hope they get better. But something is odd here.
Yeah, and it's odd, and it's clear the family wants a change here. And Wendy very much wants this change.
Now, there's the other thing that's really interesting. She talked about Diddy.
And I think this goes to the clarity that she is speaking with. Charlemagne asked her about Diddy's case. For those who
smart.
don't know, and you're going to hear Charlemagne reference this, there's a long history between Diddy and Wendy. As the story goes, Diddy got her fired back in 1998 from her job at Hot 97.
Right.
So here's what Charlemagne asked her.
You got fired from Hot 97 years ago because of Diddy. All these years later to see where Diddy currently is, what do you feel about that situation?
Hey, when I watch TMZ and I see the stuff that goes on, I'm like, oh my gosh, Diddy will go to prison for life, people. You don't know things that I knew about Diddy back in the day, and you want to know what? It's about time, people. It is about time. Diddy done.
Wow. Again,
She sounded
She
like,
sounds-
like she was doing her show there.
absolutely. She sounds like she is on the air. And
I mean, she was on the air, but doing her show.
I get it. There is some.
Yeah.
This thing has got to be mined because there is something wrong with somebody her age, with her mental acuity, being locked up in an old folks' home without any access to the outside world. There's something wrong
Now,
here.
it is true that if someone has dementia, that they can have periods where they do seem lucid and clear.
Yeah.
But it would be risky for her to go on to do an interview for a half hour.
And a free-flowing interview.
Right.
And by
because
the way,
at any point, if she gets off of that, that's going to be on the air.
oh, listen
So-
to that. She's going off. That didn't happen.
And it
here.
didn't happen, right.
And it didn't happen a week ago when Charlemagne talked to her then. And I have talked personally to people in her life who are telling me the same thing. So this is alarming. It is simply alarming.
Hi, I'm Hope. I'm in LA, and I think it's absolutely absurd that Wendy Williams is in a conservatorship. It's like, have we learned?
All right, we'll resume our conversation. So, Charlemagne, if you guys don't know, used to work with her when she was on her radio show. Like, Wendy's been doing this since forever, like since the late 80s. Okay, so she's been this person who knew the tea since forever. That's how she built her platform. And trust me, it was not like this cute, shiny, like, let's do the hot topic thing. It was like the worst of YouTube. Like, let me tell you who's doing what. Like, these rappers are gay. Like, she is us pretty much, but like raw. And this was on the radio. So people hated her. And so when she was talking about like gay rappers and all this stuff, she pretty much was talking about Diddy. She was talking about his behind years and years and years ago. She was on him. And so she was calling out all these different people. I invite you to look it up because, for one, like, listen, it's only so much I'm willing to take on myself to say. But the things that I read in, the things I read in this book are things that Wendy Williams was talking about in the 90s. So it's like a lot of celebrities hated her. So she had to rebrand when she came out here to do her show. And I actually went to her, they'll have like parties to celebrate the launch of shows. I went to that party. It was on Sunset. I can't remember if it was the Viper Room or whatever. So like nobody wanted to go because that's how much they disliked her. Some marketing genius should actually study how she was able to flip her brand, because people hated her because she was telling on people and she didn't care. She was not scared. So it's like, we don't like her because she basically could be a detriment to us. So she did like this whole soft relaunch. She glammed herself up and she became very white woman friendly. Think about it during the time. This is like the mid 2000s. And we've got a lot of talk shows on TV. And she compartmentalized her personality, the good parts of her personality, I believe, but like she was very rugged. She was very, very niggerish. Okay. Come with me, hold my hand. She was very, very rough because think about it. It's the East Coast and she's like on hip hop and, R&B. She's of the time, of the age, and so she's a very brash person. So to get into TV and Hollywood, you got to fit in. So and she was getting older too. That's what I think too. Like what, she's like in her 60s, so she's like in her late 40s at that point. So it's time for her to make a change. When I went to that party, for one, I was working in PR at the time. I will tell you, people were like, you're begging to go into places. You're trying to get your clients into stuff. One of my girlfriends was an actress, and so I submitted her to go, and I brought my little clients that could not, their names weren't big enough to go. And we got accepted so fast. And when we got there, it was so sad because there weren't that many people there. Not like it's a free party, free food, free drinks, right? And it was like, oh, okay. But it took her, I would say, no more than like 2 years to get the party started. And then you started to see folks kind of file in. Mariah Carey, Diddy, people that she had beef with. I don't know if you guys remember those things, but those were moments like, bitch, like you told on me, like you told on my friend. Like, it took a moment for the industry to embrace her. I'm serious. Like, someone needs to study it because it was amazing to see that. Because some people, when you piss them off, you're done. You're written off. And she was able to do it. So when Diddy came on that show, I don't know if you guys remember this episode, but I remember looking at his jaw clenching and him talking to her, and she was able to really like soften him up and pretend like everything was cool. And I remember being in New York at the time and hearing those things and hearing people talk about stuff, and I'm just like, he's always come off to me to be someone who's been very vindictive. So even if he says we're cool, it's like you're probably not. So hearing Charlemagne ask her that question, I said was smart because he was demonstrating that not only is she lucid in this moment, but her memory is still good. And she answered the question and launched right back into like, oh yeah, like I've been saying all this time, blah, 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 blah. That right there is a great demonstration that she is doing well cognitively. Now, let me tell you this part without me saying too much. So let me think about it because my words are coming faster than my thoughts. I have a family member that is an alcoholic, and her years of alcoholism has affected her personality and her cognitive functioning. So it's interesting because I went through this thing with my daughter, right? Like, my daughter couldn't speak. She didn't know who I was. She could not speak like the language. She was grunting and everything. She didn't know who I was until probably like 5 days into it. Now, mind you, she's in her 20s. So her recovery is a lot different than someone like me who's like in their 40s or almost 50, right? So my brain would not be able to recover as fast. But, the body is miraculous and God is real too, right? So I saw a parallel between what my daughter went through and seeing this relative hospitalized for alcohol related events, and the same thing with the brain. And I'm just like, what? Like hallucinations, conversations that make no sense, reduced to like primitive kind of behaviors like grunting and, being protective and just weird stuff, right? With this particular family member. And I know this person my whole life, and this person is not the same. But then she has moments where she'll get clean. And then you start to see the subtle nuances of her personality kind of fill back in. Like it's not done yet. You know what I mean? Wendy needed something to detox. I think that it's important for us to say that because the years of constant abuse it degrades the brain. You lose brain cells. Like it's real messed up, right? Because when I was pregnant with my daughter, I remember my doctor saying, oh, you can have a little glass of wine. It's okay. Like, this is like, my daughter's 26. So this is years and years ago. I remember that. And I was like, okay, it's okay. 9 month, have a little wine. Now, with my 12-year-old, I would never. I was sober. I wouldn't even take medication. You know what I mean? Like what we know now about the body. There's no amount of alcohol that is safe. It is absolute poison. And it ruins your body. It ruins your everything. The detox that she experienced is why we're able to see this version of her. And maybe it took this to get here. However, and I made some notes. The problem I have is that now that she seems lucid and consistent most of the time, why don't we have another assessment? Because last month, I think it was last month, they said that she was permanently disabled. Permanently disabled does not get on the phone and like, hey, how you doing? Hey, well, hey, Jess, hey, this person, hey, that person, you know, and have multiple conversations, have a consistent stream of thought. I didn't say that she was as sharp as she was before. No one's saying that. But she handled all those different things on the fly very well. Now, I will also be honest and say that watching her on Don Lemon's show was a little bit different. But I also feel like Don Lemon's energy was a little weird too. I feel like Don was, even though he claims that they're friends and he talked about, you know, moments that they had together, it just didn't seem like he settled in the conversation. You ever talk to someone and they're talking at the same time as you? Yeah, and you can't establish a rhythm to the point where you're like, I don't really want to do this anymore. Like like if you're at a party, like yeah, and the silences are awkward, and you're like, I'm just gonna go over there to the punch bowl. That's what that conversation felt like. You remember when you took off your wig when you were at my house? And it's like, Negro, I only got 20 minutes. So look, let me talk about my situation, right? And her filler words, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like I just said, like, those are my filler words. And those are words that you use when there's uncomfortable spaces or you're trying to anchor yourself in thought, when you're anxious. A lot of times we don't hear them until we hear our recordings. Like, I just did it right now. Her filler words were amplified in Don's conversation. They were rhythmic and fun in the Breakfast Club conversation, but with Don Lemon, not so much. So I kind of could have did without that, and I wish she would have spaced out her interviews. I think she has one with Jason Lee in a few minutes at 11 o'clock, I think. And I think you got to preserve her. One, you got to practice, and you got to practice on the job. Talking to Charlamagne, who is someone that she's worked with for hella years. Like, he knows her. I hear people saying, yeah, she was good, she's bad, whatever. Charlamagne knows her. So I'm going to trust him. I trust that he has a good handle on this and believes that she is being treated unfairly, that she is not permanently disabled, that she's the person that he knows. He knows that. He knows her better than any of us do. He knows her longer than some of her longtime friends. Like I'm telling you, they work together. So he is a person that we can trust. Which sounds crazy because I never would have said that about Charlamagne. But Don Lemon is leaning into, she sounds spaced out. These are my words. These are not his words. That, there is something there, something wrong. She was put in this conservatorship for a reason. Okay. We feel you. But should this person be separated from her family? Should this person not have a phone? Like, it all doesn't make sense. Let me see. What's my last note? I have one more note. One thing that I noted, and this is going to be my last thing. They have her on mood stabilizers to make her more pliable. That is it. Because remember I said to you, I was like, she seems very, like I said, she was in a space of gratitude. So my daughter, and I've talked to her about this. She knows that I talk about this quite often, and I want her to share her story because what happened to her was really effed up, and we were not able to recover any damages or anything. Her insurance spent nearly $800,000 on getting her brain back together. Her stay in the intensive care unit, she received an $800,000 bill. So she saved my grandson's life, and that's a story. It's amazing. It's amazing, and I want to tell it, but I want her to be a part of that. But anyway, long story short, this child is a sweet child. She's a gentle giant. She's 6'2". She's a big old curvy something. And she and my other child, they're these massive people. They're strong and they're big and they're the nicest people ever. I am not so much. I'm a little bit more abrasive. I have a good heart though, but I'm an Aries. I'm fiery. And they have always kind of been like, really? Is that the energy? But they're not snarky people. And I'm so glad because my family is full of snarks, full of alphas. So to have these people given to me was good for my energy. It calmed me down. But when I tell you, after the accident, my daughter would snap on me like in a way that made me want to put hands on her. In a way that made me want to fight her and just give it all away. Just, do you understand what I'm saying? Like the kind of fight where you like the first thing you know, you just hit somebody in the mouth. Like I've never even been in a situation like this before, but I was like thinking of ways to like hurt her because of the way she spoke to me. She had never, ever, ever done this before. And I had to brace myself. At first, it was like fight or flight because they were like crazy. I would say something to her and she would snap at me and she would say something. And mind you, she's got size on her, so she's not in her right mind. So I'm like, is she going to do something to me? And she didn't realize it. When she was in the hospital, there's a few times, well, not a few times, but people who have head injuries don't realize they have head injuries. They don't really realize what's going on and they want to escape all the time. Something about that situation says I need to leave. The same thing happened to one of my best friends who had multiple head injury accidents. He said the same thing. Every conversation leads to I want to leave, I want to leave, I want to leave. My daughter's short-term memory was messed up to the point where she could only remember the last 5 minutes. So she would call me constantly all day long and we would have the same conversation over and over. And it would end with, so when are you coming to get me? Or when are you going to come and see me kind of thing. And I'd be there in the hospital, right? Just like downstairs or something like that. And we would do this all day long. It would happen for weeks. But she would fight the nurses. She would lock them out of the room. She would get up and leave. She works in mental health, so she knew how to advocate for herself. So she figured out eventually that she wasn't on a medical hold, and she talked herself out of the hospital. But she was aggressive and fervent and nasty and rude. And I'm thinking, Wendy Williams, locked in a luxury prison, not able to do her things and do her Wendy things, she probably was a battle axe. So I found out later they did not ask me for my consent or anything. That they were giving my daughter mood stabilizers in the hospital. And this mood stabilizer also affected her short-term memory as well, so it made it worse. Like she thought she was a superhero, she thought she was in prison. It was all kinds of stuff. Like it was exhausting. But this mood stabilizer changed her personality to the point where she was super, super, super sweet. So we had a person who was very mild for the most part and very conscientious and a good-natured person. She really is a good person. Like she is. But she was like thoughtful and considerate and extremely sad. I would like say something to her and she'd start crying in the middle of she'd cry all the time. And I was just like, why is she like this? It's the medication. Then we tried to take her off the medication and she turned back into a booger wolf. And I was like, I'm gonna kill you. You gonna kill me. It's ain't gonna work. So she went back on. Then I noticed that she was back off because I could tell when she being curt with me and stuff. And now I'm used to it. And then she came to a point where she was like, Mom, I think I need to get back on the medication because there are things there. She goes, there are things that I want to do to people that I've never felt before. So it's just her mind. Think of it like an onion. Like when these people like wake up, they're like, oh shit, like I gotta fix this, you know? And I gotta get out of here. And who can I trust? Who can I trust? Can I trust myself? And then there's like layers of consciousness kind of come in. So when they said they had her on mood stabilizers, they have her on mood stabilizers to control her. And that's probably why she's a little bit more docile. Again, this is not medical advice. I'm not qualified to say anything. I'm just sharing my personal experience. I wish they would give this stuff to that other relative, the alcohol, the alcoholic. She could use this shit. She could. Cause she's a mean so and so. And in the hospital currently. But you know, if I talk to her, she still thinks we're in the fight that we were in 3 years ago. She don't know. She's just gone. And if she sobers up, she's young enough where I think that she could bounce back. So if someone came to me and said, hey, Cecily, so what you think we should do with Wendy? Girl, well, let me tell you. She needs to be with her family. She's not going to live a happy life. She's not going to heal and live out the rest of her days. That, you know, none of us know how long we're supposed to be here, right? But longing and loneliness and just being a prisoner in your own head is a surefire way to shorten your lifespan, right? At the very least, why wouldn't you put her in the city where her family's at? Why not? It's right down the street where people can at least come and sit with her. Just going and sitting with your relative will help them to live longer. Just spending time with them having something to look forward to. I just can't believe that the whole mental health aspect, the aspect of like, how do we service this client? This client is calling for basic needs like companionship and autonomy and respect. You know, like those are basic human things in our society, right? And for someone who has worked their whole life, who's made a ton of money, you would think that like your money could at least buy that. But in this case, it seems like that doesn't matter. So it's like, well, what's our rule here? What is our rule? If you're trying to keep the drug pushers and the yes men and women away, that can be arranged. And if there are people who are willing to step up and to say, I'll be responsible and I will have to do X, Y, and Z to make sure she's good. And perhaps if she wants her freedom, then she's got to go and do these things too. You know, like testing for alcohol, giving an allowance, right? Having to go to classes, having to have a therapist. There are so many other things that could be done outside of this. So my stance is free Wendy. That's what I'm on. Let's free her. She deserves to have a good life, just like all of us. I would want someone to say that for me as well. I don't believe that she can do it on her own. I do think she needs help, and I think that she's in a place where she's ready to receive it. I feel like for her, anything would be better than this. With that being said, I appreciate you guys checking out this live video, and we'll see what happens. I'm going to watch Jason's interview and see if there's anything else that we can learn from this. Seeing the attorney come out and say that about her is just shady. Oh, she has good days and bad days. Just ignore the good day. Girl, no. No, you got a human being saying, I'm hurting. I need help. Help her. Help her. I mean, I don't think any of us were happy to hear that Wells Fargo was like, hey, because at the end of the day, where does the money go? Because Wells Fargo like does this with her money like they do with our money. They basically use our money to invest in other things. They make money off of our money being in their banks. So yeah, 50, 60 million or whatever it's in there. Yeah, it would be a shame for this to be out of our bank because we make money off of this. You guys don't care about her legacy or her kids. Like, they don't care about that. Child, please. Wells Fargo don't care about none of us. Okay? I have been a client, was it a class action recipient for Wells Fargo at least twice in my lifetime. They don't care about us. So this is very crazy. They really are trying to rob this woman. And we need to see the receipts. We need to see the receipts, Sabrina. Sabrina Morrissey is the woman. Look her up. Google her. Google her. She deserves it. All right, guys. See y'all. Peace out.